All right, welcome everyone to the True DataOps podcast. This is our episode, and I'm Kent Graziano, the Data Warrior. Each episode, we try to bring you a discussion around the world of data ops with the people that are making data ops happen today. So be sure to look up and subscribe to the DataOps.live YouTube channel, because that's where you're going to find all the recordings from our past episodes. So if you've missed any of the prior episodes, let's get the new year off to a good start and go back and take a look at some of those and see what you might learn and see who you might hear from. Better yet, you can go to truedataops.org and subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss any of the future episodes. Now, my guest today is my good friend, is a very experienced solution architect and now independent consultant, Paul Rankin. Welcome back to the show, Paul. I think is this the second or third time you've been on?
Yeah, thanks, Kent. Great to be back. I think it's the second one with you. And did one with
Frank.
Good friend with Frank. Yeah, so yeah, great. Love DataOps.
Yeah. So for the folks who don't know you very well, will you give us a little bit of your background in data management and a bit about your career and where you've been and where you're going?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose a bit like yourself, Kent. Started way back when really the only solutions around data-specific solutions, were pretty much mainframe-based solutions, talking SaaS and, base SaaS and DB2 mainframe, suddenly moving into that realm of BI, if you like, with Cognos and business objects appearing, in the scene. And then always really been into, data and analytics. And then that moved through to, I was a consultant at IBM, and that moved more into the TM1 and planning, where I did a bit of consultancy there. And then came across to Switzerland. Again, the cloud was taking off at that time, and we had Azure and AWS. And then moved to Accenture, where, of course, they were at the forefront of that evolution. On the data space, everyone was migrating their data to data lakes and data warehouses on the cloud. And then, I started working with, as you know, our good friend Omar at Roche, who wanted to do something a little bit different. It was about 5 years ago now, with Gemax data mesh paradigm. And that's when we started working directly with ThoughtWorks to try and, I suppose, prove data mesh at scale, at Roche. And, that was kind of the journey there through data mesh. Now I'm an independent consulting. I'm kind of helping, with my experience of, most companies, they want two things, right? They want speed, yeah, but they also want good data management practices and governance and quality and things that come with it, right? And what I've found, in the last year of going independent is that usually companies, take one over the other. Usually there's, they want to go fast, but they forget that, the data management practices and the governance, they kind of leave these behind. And now, what we need to do, there is no choice. Yeah, we need both absolutely together. And this is what I'm doing now, helping, some organizations trying to, get to more of a modern data strategy, but at the same time, it's not one boot fits all, as you know. It's company specific. You need to understand the maturity of the company, how advanced they are in their data journeys, how I suppose distributed their whole ecosystem is, because a lot of people make a mistake of saying, okay, distributed architecture, distributed ownership, data mesh, this is what I want to do, but they look at their organization, or they forget to look at their organization, and actually their organization is not that at all. It's very centralized. They have a very centralized process of building, managing, maintaining data pipelines. And, to change a company like this is actually, really difficult, as opposed to a company that is by nature a lot more distributed. So anyway, just I digress, but this is where I am today, and trying to help these guys move in the right direction, I would say.
Yeah, and you're also a data vault expert too, because I remember correctly, I think the first time we ever talked was you wanted to ask me about doing data vault on Snowflake back when I was working at Snowflake.
Yeah,
you were at Accenture working at Roche, I think.
Exactly. I am no data vault expert, right? Let me tell you, I've worked with a lot of really amazing data engineers, data vault modelers, who are much more proficient than me. But what I can do, in one of the organizations I'm working with just now, is helping them. They're full in data vault, right? They have a very big team that is providing a lot of data models, but they also want, their company is also very distributed, and they want distributed ownership, not full data mesh, but distributed ownership. So I'm helping them, try to fit data vault methodology, side by side with this distributed ownership, because they're clearly, and we talk about this all the time, there is some things that don't fit. Let's be honest about it, yeah. And when you really break it down and deconstruct it, yes, absolutely, both can work together, but it's you do need to set some guardrails, some boundaries, and some new ways of working.
Well,
Um,
yeah. So now you're back to good data management practices.
of course, exactly. Yeah, it all boils down to good data management practices. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I think this season we were trying to take a little bit of a step back on the show here and look at how the world of true data ops has really evolved, and what have we learned over the last couple of years. And you've certainly been right in the middle of all of this with your work with Roche and other companies. So you've been helping customers, like Roche, try to take advantage of things like data mesh and data vault, and with tools like DataOps.live and Snowflake, right? So uh, give us a little flavor of what you've seen and how this space has evolved in the last couple of years, and kind of what you're seeing today from maybe when
Yeah.
we first started and we first met.
Yeah. I have thought about this. Somebody else asked me this question a little bit. What is the big difference you've seen? And just let's just go back, 4, 5 years.
Yeah, it's really not that far back. Yeah.
No, it's not. And everybody was starting to really talk about speed, right? I mean, the data is coming so fast. There's so much of it, and the business, needs to use it to their advantage. Absolutely, that's what it all boils down to: competitive advantage for a lot of these organizations, and they need speed for this. Yeah, not just speed of pipelines or development, but they need clearly, speed to insights, speed to market. And what changed, right, from 5 years ago, was the developer, the standard, let's call it BI developer, right? The database developer was absolutely not skilled and equipped for this change, right? Yes, you had two sides of the fence, right? What we were trying to do is we were trying to take traditional BI developers, I don't know what visualization developers, pipeline developers, whatever you want to call them, 5 years ago, and we were trying to make them a little bit, well, as we know today, they're DataOps developers, right? But back 5 years ago, it was kind of DevOps developers, right? And we were trying to shoehorn these guys that had the business knowledge, a little bit of business knowledge about how to model data, how to build pipelines. We were trying to shoehorn them into now actually, to go on a distributed ownership journey with data mesh and everything else. You need to be a bit more than that. You need to understand CI/CD. You need to understand change data capture. You need to understand, good branching, merge techniques, publishing, deployment, all that.
Well, and
That,
product management, because now we're talking
and
about data
yeah,
products, even, right?
exactly. That was also, the thing in the world, or the industry, right? That were providing these huge, copious amounts of developers to every company. Were actually not ready for this, and it's been a huge learning process. Not just for the companies who could not get the right developers or data engineers, whatever you want to call them, right? But also for the vendors that were providing them, that were supplying them. because I mean, as you know, we worked with big guys like Accenture, TCS, Data, these guys, and you know, really, we would be asking, okay, we need a data engineer to work in our cross-functional data product team, our vertical team, and immediately, 5 years ago, they would be asking, okay, what technologies, right, do you use, right? And it doesn't work, you know. It doesn't care. I mean, we don't care if we're using Snowflake or AWS or Databricks or wherever. We need data engineers, fit for the modern data platform, and that's the journey that I see the most change in this whole 4 year journey, 5 year journey. But thankfully now it's getting a lot better. Vendors have understood, the skills that modern data engineers need. Because it's funny, we learned our lesson pretty quickly in the first 6 months at Roche, and we started asking vendors for DevOps engineers, right?
Yeah.
Because yes, they might not know anything about data, but absolutely they were much better at doing that whole, good data management practices, as you rightly said. So, I think it's a bit of mix. If you have a DevOps engineer that knows about data, this is this is what you need. But yeah, that's the biggest difference.
Yes. So, from your perspective, what is data ops really, and how important is it today for companies to be adopting some sort of data ops practices to manage these massive landscapes that we now have?
I mean, absolutely, it's important for me. DataOps, is not just about code repository. It's not just about CI/CD pipeline. To me, it's governance. It's end-to-end governance of the build and the manage and the maintenance of data products. Now, we call it data products today. We might call it something else tomorrow, but essentially, if you have and it's right. I mean, some companies do not, want the distributed ownership. They're very monolith still. They're very central. Basically, a lot of companies have opted for IT organizations, the traditional data warehouse team or their integration team, building source-aligned data products. Right? That some companies have opted for that and publishing them as data products. And that works. Okay, and actually, what you end up with is quite a highly skilled team of data engineers, building, managing, maintaining source-aligned data products, using tools like DataOps or Live or any other tool. And this works. Yes, you've still got the monolith effect. You've still got a huge backlog, right? But actually, your team stays pretty central. You have the skills all in that team, and it actually works. Yeah. But when you suddenly move right to this distributed ownership, where basically, I mean, at Roche we had like 1,000 developers, over 1,000 developers, right, all developing, in distributed teams. And how do you standardize that? How do you standardize the build of data products, right? What you need clearly is some kind of tool, like DataOps Live, or as you know, some people go for the build option, the home build option with GitLab, Automate Now, Liquibase, all together, packaged up as a solution, right? Whatever you choose, you need to understand that you cannot just give them it and say, all right, get on with it, right? To me, DataOps is a process of a guided developer experience, and that is the key. It's a bit like showing your developers, here you go, here's your AWS account, go and build me, a database or a data product or whatever. Yeah, knock yourself out. Choose whatever 360 services you want, and give me it next week. I mean, honestly, and this is a bit like DataOps. I mean, essentially, if you give them the repository and tell them to build whatever they want, using whatever orchestrator they want, and using whatever language they want, and whatever way they want, you get a complete mess. Yeah, and this is where the governance comes in. And I work with a lot of customers to say you need a reference project. You need a central reference project that is allowing child projects to pull from and use SDKs, reusable components that are managed and maintained by the data platform team, so that you're governing the way that all these developers are building, because they're coming so fast that you're never ever going to be able to police and monitor and support all developers. But if you have publishing, reusable components for them to pull in and to configure to build their pipelines, that gives them speed, and it also gives you scale as well at the end of the day. And this is what, to me, it really is. It's the developer experience, but the governed developer experience.
Yeah. Okay. It's been it's over 4 years now since we, excuse me, first published the TrueDataOps.org site, and the philosophy of True Data Ops, the Dummies Guide to Data Ops. Justin and Guy and I all worked on that, and then we had that 7 pillars of True Data Ops. For listeners, if you haven't looked at it, you can go to truedataops.org/7-pillars to look those up. But do you think those 7 pillars still resonate today?
I mean, of course they do in some way or another. I mean, I don't think anybody is really, rolling them off their tongue, every time they're building a data pipeline, if you ask me that. But, I still think that, they will evolve as well, right? Because let's face it, DataOps as a paradigm, as a principle, guiding principle, is still fairly new. I mean, we're only talking, 5 or
4
6
years
years
since we published that. Yeah.
4 years since you published it, 5 or 6 years when someone heard the term, probably. So, and we had guys like Justin and Guy and yourself really at the forefront of, trying to define, what DataOps really means. And I think that definition will always evolve. And I think the 7 pillars, will have to be continually evolving as well. And it's a bit like, safe and these things and what is it? I forget the findable, addressable characteristics, interoperable.
Oh, that's the data mesh definition.
Yeah, but that evolved from FAIR. Yep.
Right.
So FAIR was, again, about maybe 8 years ago. We heard FAIR for the first time, and that lasted for a while. And then as soon as data mesh came along, actually FAIR was not good enough, or it was good enough, but it didn't service everything.
Right.
So somehow the FAIR principles evolved into I think it's the 7 data product characteristics, and that will evolve even further as you get. And I think that even Guy decided that the 7 characteristics for data products that Jamac published was not enough at some point. So he, I think, added.
He did publish some things about what really defines a data product. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think by nature these guiding principles will always evolve. They will always change. But I think it all, at the end of the day, and like we keep saying, it boils down to the practice of good data management. It's not just, CI/CD. It's not just DevOps. It is good data management practices. And now we're actually really trying to understand now. Only now, I would say, we really are understanding what those good data management practices are in a modern data world, right, where the business needs speed, right? But as a whole organization, we need security, governance, all these good data management practices. But it's not easy.
Yeah. Well, and now we've got, the explosion of at least interest and attempted usage of AI and Gen AI to even build data products, right? So how important do you think all of this is, the DataOps principles and things like that, with that now being inserted into an already complicated data management space?
Yeah. I mean, I just don't think we really understand what that effect will have fully yet. It's not going away, clearly. That's for sure. It's here to stay. and companies, have to really get their act together. And by the way, I'm no expert on it. Let me just put it out there. But companies are really scrambling around trying to find, the best way to deal with it, because you've got CIOs, CEOs that are going, yeah, well, AI is brilliant. We should be using more AI. Yeah. But then, underneath in reality, you've got real multi-million pound decisions being made on data, right? That has been generated, by who? Someone
And
somewhere,
based on what?
some machine, and based on what? Yeah, and this is the bridge that we need to cross: is where do we use, AI, and how does that fit into the DataOps principles, and where we don't? Because AI can be used for anything, as you know. Yeah, it can be used for, clearly refactoring your code, even for, sense checking your code. It can be used for suggesting, different things, ways of doing things, all this, anomalies, everything. So it's finding the sensible places that we can use it to accelerate our journey, and especially in the DataOps world. Now, go back to the speed thing. Yeah, currently DataOps is clearly mastered the world of micro batch type of modalities when it comes to data products. All right. Now, when everything's moving to real time event based triggering, then a lot of the capabilities that a tool like DataOps.live is offering, right, is maybe diluted a little bit when the event is getting triggered from a machine, or from a battery, or from a hydroelectric power plant, or wherever. Yeah, and that is where we need. And for me, working with a lot of companies who are now moving towards these streaming modalities, or currently what I'm doing is trying to work out how the DataOps capabilities fit into these type of modalities.
Well, you still got to, I guess, still got to have that governance and management of the pipeline. And it's one thing to be streaming the data into a platform,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
then what do you do once it gets there, right? Are you feeding
Yeah.
it just the raw data straight into some sort of AI? Is it going into a dashboard? Or is it still going through what you and I would probably consider traditional data warehouse
Pipe.
lifecycle of some sort of,
Yeah.
some sort of transformations?
Yeah. Yeah.
And all of that code still has to be managed,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
but even faster, right,
Of
and
course. Yeah. Yeah.
maybe probably more governed, controlled. But
Yeah.
how do you accelerate all of that without some form of automation, right?
Yeah. No, 100%. And this is where, I think it's really the key is trying, especially when you're talking about data ops, where is it really now lying? Because I think it's different where we are now, when it was like 5-6 years ago. Yeah, and they had a clear vision that, I mean, 90% 5 years ago, people were doing micro batch at best, right?
Right. Yeah.
And
They were
really
trying to do real time, and maybe they
yeah.
were hitting near real time.
Yeah, exactly. And still in most cases, probably micro batch is fine, right? For a lot of organizations. But the more and more, and especially in industries that rely on real-time decision making, clearly they're getting a lot more data to deal with, and we need to, understand. I call it the modalities. It's a word we used it at Roche, actually, is it's the makeup of the patterns of the frequency of the data, the volume of the data, the machine type that it's coming from, the format it's coming from, and what you need to do with it. Yeah, and all that kind of make up a modality. And it's it's I mean, it's good now. We're working with an energy company who now have battery information coming in. So at one case, you've got battery feeding in of what it should be outputting, but you've got the real output, and then you've got the frequency of temperatures and weather conditions that the battery will put out more or less, power. And it's really interesting. This is quite new to me. I knew working in more of the energy trading sector, where we're exposed to a lot more real-time decision making, and of course, as you know, this makes data really quite one more complex. Yeah, and you do need your people are relying on your data pipelines to be absolutely nailed spot on, giving them the right results, because one single mistake and these traders are making horrendous decisions. So
Yeah, that wouldn't
uh,
be good.
yeah. Of course, yeah. Or
So,
maybe good for some.
what advice do you give your clients on sort of the buy versus build decision, and how to get started in having a well governed kind of end to end data
Mhm.
ops approach?
Yeah, you know, it really again depends on the company and the ethos of the company. Are they an IT organization by nature? You know, are the engineers traditionally companies that are an engineering IT company love to build things? Yeah, and if you don't give the people that opportunity to build, they'll go somewhere else to another company and they'll build it there. But you know, in general, clearly you're going to accelerate your journey with a build, a buy, sorry, a buy capability. I mean, there is no way that I've seen any company build a DataOps solution from scratch that can get up and running in production, with a highly scalable, highly trusted service quicker than such as a tool like DataOps Live. I mean, that's for sure. And even if they think they can do it cheaper at the start, yeah, it is always, the total cost of ownership is always either the same or more expensive in the long run. I saw a company once who projected the costs of a build DataOps solution. And actually, the build went up for 2 years and then started going down after 2 years. And I was saying, this is crazy. I have never seen a product, right, that's been built going down. I mean, are you going to close it down after 2 years or what? Yeah.
Yeah, what were they thinking there? Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like, yes, we're not gonna you're not gonna do any more enhancements. The
yeah.
underlying systems aren't going to change.
Yeah.
There's not going to
Yeah.
be a snowflake upgrade that
That
changes
you have to
something. There's
refactor.
not going to be
Yeah.
a data
Yeah.
pipeline change. It's like, yeah, how could you think it was going to go down?
Absolutely, absolutely, and I've seen a lot of companies make that mistake. That we can do it ourselves; it's cheaper.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's the total cost ownership conversation. Yeah, that's the one I always
yeah,
point people towards. Is like, yeah, you've got a great set of engineers. I had somebody, you'll find this probably hysterical. One of the very first Snowflake events I did when we started doing little tours. I had a guy in the audience who was, I'll say even senior to us,
yeah,
been in the space for literally decades. When I'm presenting what Snowflake does and the new features, the scalable storage, the scalable compute, auto suspend, all that stuff, he's like, I can build that myself.
yeah. Knock
Great.
yourself out.
It's like, okay, great. And then I sat and talked with him, and afterwards I said, but okay, so maybe you have the experience to build all of this, but what happens to your client when you retire
Yeah,
and you leave? Are there people there that you're working with that you think can handle and manage what you built? And he got thinking about it and go, yeah, that's probably a good point. It's like, yeah, I can
yeah,
make a bunch of money building this for them, but after I'm gone,
yeah.
yeah, they don't have anybody that could really keep it running. It's like, well, then, do your client a favor and have that conversation with them, right?
I
Because
mean,
that's,
it's true.
I think they say short term, hey, I worked one place once where there's like, I was doing a total cost of ownership for our data warehouse, and they said I could not count the salary and overhead cost of the current employees that were on my team. It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
why not? I mean, this is what it costs us to do all of this. I said, yeah, well, we're paying them, they're employees. And if they weren't doing this, they'd be doing something else. And I was like,
something that's more
well,
valuable
okay.
than.
So, I have like a team of 5 people building this massive enterprise data warehouse system that has to be maintained. And they're like, no, you can't count any of the staff costs in your total cost of ownership. All we want to know about
Yeah,
is software, how much the software costs, and maybe if you had to bring in consultants, but not the DBAs that are going to be maintaining it. It's like, but this is what it costs to run it. They're like,
Yeah,
no,
yeah,
no, no,
yeah.
no, no, no. Yeah, they're basically free. It's like, so
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to see their balance sheet if they think they're free.
yeah, well,
Yeah.
like I said, that was a very interesting. Yeah, that I think people definitely have a problem with that total cost of ownership conversation.
I
Um,
think that's why Snowflake is so hard for Snowflake to do that, because it's hard to prove it at the end of the day. Yeah,
right. Yes. Yeah. Because nobody wants to admit what
yeah,
they're currently doing or currently not doing with their time, in order to say,
yeah,
yeah, where are the savings here, right? Is there,
yeah,
and how
yeah.
can we redeploy our
So
personnel because whether it's DataOps.live or Snowflake, because there's things that our people had to do in the past with the older technologies that they now don't have to do,
yeah,
and figuring out where's that business value, what can they be doing with their time instead, and at the same time, are we improving the quality, which I think the governance
yeah,
and the
yeah.
quality of what we're doing, especially if we're feeding it into AI, can we bump that out, and how much is that worth
Yep,
in comparison
exactly.
to what we were doing?
And that's really a good point. That kind of leads me into, I'm working with an organization just now who are using DataOps.live, by the way, and they had an old legacy team, more like a data warehouse team. Yeah, I think 9, 10 people in their team, building like legacy pipelines, SQL Server or Oracle. I forget what they were using, but essentially, it took them, for any new feature, any new loader, any new ingestion, it took an average 3 months, right, to do with one FTE. And actually, moving to the data platform, the new data platform with DataOps.live, with AWS and Snowflake, they reduced that to 5 days to build a
Wow,
data product.
it's pretty
3 months
amazing.
to 5 days. Yeah. So absolutely, it can work. A modern data platform can accelerate 100% your journey.
Yeah. All right. Well, unfortunately, we're out of time, Paul. It's like you and I can go on and
Ah,
on forever.
yeah,
So
yeah. We need to extend it next time. Okay.
yeah, yeah. So what's next for you? Any events or meetups or anything that you're gonna be at
I'll
that
be off
you
to
like?
the Winter Data Conference in March. It's the light data guys with Chris and the team. I
Oh
think
yeah,
there's a few people will be
is
there.
that the one
Joyce
in
will be there.
Switzerland, right? The
Yeah, they're moving it this year to Austria. So it was in Switzerland for the last 2 years. They're
yeah,
moving to Austria
the
this year.
ski day.
So I'll be. Yeah, it used to be Skids. Now it's changed to the Winter Data Conference. So I'll be there in
Winter Data
March
Conference. Okay.
if anybody wants there. And clearly the rest of the calendar, I need to check with my. Well, I need to check with. I was going to say my PA, but I need to check with my wife actually to
Yeah,
check what's.
I'm in that boat now too. Yes.
Yeah.
What's on my calendar?
Awesome. So yeah, listen, I'm happy. If anybody wants to reach out to me directly, then just ping me on LinkedIn direct, and we can have a chat. I'm more than happy to do that. So
Right, and there's a QR code there on the screen for folks if they want to. You can scan that, or you can just search for Paul on LinkedIn. I'm sure you'll find him. If you're watching this event, there's a link to his profile right there on the event page already. Well,
awesome.
thanks for your insights and being my guest today, Paul. It's always is great to chat with you as always. Thanks to everyone who's online for joining, or those of you who are watching this as a replay. You can join me again in 2 weeks. And as always, be sure to like the replays from today's show and tell all your friends about the True Data Ops podcast. Don't forget to go to truedataops.org, subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss the future episodes. So until next time, this is Kent Graziano, the Data Warrior, signing off for now. Ciao.